Hello, it is me, Books Aren't Boring, also known as Perry. There is a picture up there now. It has come to my attention that my background is very boring, so I have decided to add various pictures that represent the books that we are reading for now, until I get an actual background. That'll be cool. But for now, we have the earth. Amazing. The world, as it were, for us. That's because we're reading Brave New World today. Puns, haha, funny, yes, you can laugh now, roll the laugh tracks. As I said, we are reading Brave New World. This is a library copy. This is not my copy. The copy you might get for school probably has blue on it somewhere. I feel like I remember that. It was freshman year when I read it. I don't have total good memory of it. I just remember I really liked the book. Fun fact, people have made fan art of this. I looked up fan art to see if there was because one of the main characters is described as having red teeth. We'll get into that. And I was trying to see if it was like a real thing, if people drew her like that. They do. They've also drawn the main characters as anime main characters. So, without further ado, let's get into the actual book. So, Brave New World is one of my favorite required reading books because it is kind of like satire. Except it's not. Like, if you read it, you'll see elements of satire in it, but it's not the biggest satire in the world, you know? And as you may have noticed, schools like to kind of make you read satire, like Pride and Prejudice was a satire, that kind of thing. And it's kind of not like Other Girls, because you know how dystopias are normally, sad. There's people always controlling you, but you can see who's controlling you. Like 1984, there was Big Brother. He was always watching. That was literally the thing that Big Brother was always watching. But in here, the dystopia is kind of like, is wrapped into this weird utopian package where if you were in that world, you would probably think it was a utopia because they brainwash everyone to think that way. But obviously as a reader, you're like, this sucks kind of thing. Here's some basic exposition that you also find if you read like the first chapter of the book, which I'd say the first chapter is a really good first chapter. It lays out all the stuff. And because it's not a world like ours, even though it's based in an Earth-like world, it's more interesting to read it because of the backstory, is what I think. It's kind of like reading a fantasy book, but it's made into a political commentary, as most fantasy books actually are, but that's not what this is about. It's like, basically, the people are separated into alphas and epsilons. In my notes I have, what is this? Sorority row. Anyway, alphas are basically the chads of the group. There's alpha pluses. There's alpha super alphas. There's alphas above the alphas that are like the best people. They're so smart, so handsome, so amazing. And they're like looked up to by society and whatever. They also have like huge responsibility placed on them because of how smart and cool they are, I guess. Epsilons are the ones that are basically clones of each other and made into workers. They're humans, but they're like not human. They're subhuman by the standards of this society. Like once you hit alpha, beta, gamma, once you hit like gammas, they're kind of like not important. Like alphas and betas are the important ones. Everyone else is basically just workers, not great people, There's deep conditioning, in parentheses, not a joke, in their society, because in the beginning it's described as like, when you're a kid, you have to go through, because the way that they do it, there's no more like pregnancy basically. It's just a factory where the kids are born and then they condition them based on what they're predestined to be basically. And then when they are born, they are made to go through these conditioning exercises that are like, they force you to listen to these tapes constantly about like why your class is the best class. You are the best type of thing. And obviously, when you go through the book, you start to realize that, like, of course, they feed these things to everybody. So, at one point, Lenina, who's one of the main characters, Lenina's like, I'm so glad I'm a beta. Like, the epsilons kind of have a terrible life. And then her boyfriend, they don't have boyfriends. It's kind of complicated. Is like, well, if you're an epsilon, you'd think the same thing about a beta, and that's basically how it works. So they make sure everyone is happy in society by brainwashing them. So, like I said, this is a dystopia disguised as a utopia. Also, side note, I do admit that when I read this as a 14-year-old, which is very weird considering the extremely sexual undertones of the book, when I read this as a 14-year-old, I wanted to be a beta. The betas are the best class, I will say, as an outsider, because you don't have any responsibilities, but you're like given the ability to have free will and not be a worker bee for the rest of your life, but you also don't have to solve cancer. I'd say that's a pretty good deal. However, the actual society they live in is not that great, and I say that living in there would not be a good enough, like, sacrifice just so I could have the life of a beta. That sounds really weird. I swear, this is my 14-year-old mind speaking. It is not me, 17 now. It's only been 3 years. So I already mentioned Lenina being like the main character. She's the beta girl, as I said. And then there's Bernard, who's not her boyfriend, but kind of wants to be with her in a way, because the guy she was talking to that I mentioned earlier is named Henry Foster, and he's a Chad, yes. And then Bernard is a stunted alpha, so basically he experiences this society's version of discrimination because they're all like the same now. The discrimination is based on class and not like race and all that. Bernard is short and not very muscular, which is not cool for alphas, because alphas are supposed to be cool and big and like basically bigger than every other group. Like the height goes like that. And okay, so let's get into some of the ideas of the book, because as you know, dystopias love to have mottos. So first we have community, identity, stability, which is a bit better than the war is peace mentality, I'd say, personally. If you have any other ideas, comment them below. I'm just saying I'd rather have a nation built on community, identity, stability than a war. Not that this society is any better, because once you see the infrastructure, it's like horrible. They also think that like Henry Ford is their god, basically, because he invented the conveyor belt system, and that's how they like create their children. They also mentioned Freud, but they like interchange Freud and Ford, and that's because they're weird ideas of like human sexuality and stuff, because they use a lot of Freud's ideas. If you want to learn more about that, you can look it up. I am currently in psychology, so I am learning that on my own time, but yes. They also torture kids. As I mentioned, the deep conditioning involves listening to stuff constantly, electrocuting children so that they get used to certain stimuli. Forcing them to like play certain games that I think are kind of consumerist. I think that was the idea that they were going for, that it was supposed to be like, this is a very consumerist society. They force you to do things. They have like drugs intertwined into their very system, because that is just like the way that it works. The whole society is based on like freedom, but it's not really freedom because of the way that they kind of reverse the roles of now. You know, it's called the world state, I'm pretty sure now. And then there's world leaders. There's this one guy named Mustafa Mond who is the world leader, and he was apparently originally not a person who believed in the ideas of the book, and he believed in science. And then he was like, nope, I'm going to not go to jail or exile or whatever, and then I'm going to head this society that is kind of weirdly corrupt. So the everyone belongs to everyone thing is kind of built in the non-committal energy of the society. So you're not supposed to have one significant other. It's not normal. So when Lenina says at the beginning that, sorry, I'm looking down, the book is like down here. When Lenina says at the beginning that she has been going out with this guy for 3 months, her friend is like, oh my god, no, I cannot believe that. So disgusting. You need to find another man fast. He'd be disgusted if he found out he was the only one, which, as you can see, is like, you can see the satire bleeding through here, and also how that's the complete opposite of our society, and like cheating on someone is horrible, of course, but not in their society. Cheating on someone is the norm, kind of thing. So yeah, satire, cool. I don't know why I'm so interested in this book. I guess it's just because of how wacky it is. Like, the entire book is just like, kind of, hate to use the word acid trip, but that's exactly what it feels like. It's just like some kind of alternate universe that when you take your head out of it for a second, you're like, oh my god, what the heck is happening? Henry Foster, as I mentioned before, I'm guessing the name Henry is popular in this society because Henry Ford. He mentions all men are physicochemically equal, and I think that's kind of a carryover from their old society before before Ford, as they call it, it's like AF, BF, kind of like BC and AD. Yeah, so it's no longer all men are equal, it's physiochemically equal, because technically everyone they create are humans. It's just that they condition them, make them certain ways into their own slaves of production and consumerist ideals. So if you're getting on a certain level, yes, all men are equal. But only in their bodies and not in how their eggs were forced into like chambers of cold or whatever. So then I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. This is the reservation, where it's basically the people who did not move to the world state once it was created. So it's kind of like the Native American version, because it's literally called the reservation. Like, obviously there's some Native American connections there. There's this guy named John there who is the son of a beta woman who got pregnant from like the president or vice president or someone important in the world state, and then ran away to the reservation, and then John is there. He has not learned the ideals. He is like, yes, mother, family, whereas the people in the world state are like, mother, family, that's so disgusting. And then, but he's still interested in this world state. So when Lenina and Bernard and all these people come over here, he's like, I want to go back with you. So he goes back with them. Everyone is so obsessed with John because he's different. He looks different, because everyone, of course, looks exactly the same, because they were created from like they were created in the same labs, the same batches, all that. But John is different because he has blonde hair and is tanned and all of that stuff. So everyone is obsessed with him, but Lenina is obsessed with him, and he's obsessed with Lenina. But they never end up like falling in love, because in a way she can never be in love with him because of the way society has conditioned her to be. So by the end of the book, he has hung himself because of all of the humiliation that he had to endure from the world state people who saw him as like an object and all that. Once again, here comes in the dystopia part, where you see at the end like, oh, right, this isn't a good place because it forces people out that are different from them, and they have changed the world in a way to the point where like everyone who's not brainwashed can't hold themselves anymore unless they live in a place where there are non-brainwashed people, like the reservation. But the brainwashed people who visit the reservation are like, why are they sacrificing people? Whereas the people on the reservation are like, yeah, that's normal traditions, while they're like, these are savages. Yeah, John is literally like John the Savage, I'm 99% sure. On God? Yes, on God. John, if I didn't already say this, John refers to the world state as the Brave New World, which is obviously where the book's name comes from. So it's basically like the new world, the created new world, the new world. And it's so weird to see, like, you know, all of these dystopias are already so weird to watch, because like obviously you don't think they would happen, but like if they did, that'd be so freaky. But Brave New World is just something that's like, it doesn't feel possible, so it's just nice to like look at it and be like, whoa, that's really crazy, and then go about your day. Like 1984, you can kind of be like, oh yeah, that could probably happen. But Brave New World is like, we probably have like some of the technology available, but it takes so much overhaul of like everything, or you'd have to brainwash everyone, or you just have to like straight up get rid of the people, which I guess, but like, I'm not gonna get into that mess. Probably not a good idea. I'm just saying, YouTube, don't demonetize me. I don't have monetization, but I'm just saying. So, reasons why this book is not boring. I hope you can tell from my voice and my animation that I actually like this book a lot, as I already said. So I don't think it's boring, but people do find it boring legitimately. And I think it's because of the exposition dump at the beginning. It's very difficult to get into the book if you're not into like the whole like scientific certain way that he writes. And of course, everyone is going to have different preferences for their writing styles. Like books that I find really hard to read, you might not find hard to read at all. It just depends. But I'd say the main complaint that I've read online from this is that people just don't find the writing engaging. And to that I say, I guess read the synopsis before you read it or something, because I find the writing engaging a lot, or at least the story, because it can be hard to drudge through the writing when you don't understand or don't yeah, when you don't understand the story. So if you understand the story and then you're like, you go back and you see all of the nuances of the text, then you can be like, oh, okay, that is that, and it's not as boring anymore. At least in my personal opinion, I feel like that would help. So hopefully this video actually helped you be excited about reading Brave New World, hopefully, because I think it's really good, and whenever I see people reading it for school, I like hype it up because I really like it. It's not my favorite book in general, but if you have to pick in between like two different dystopias and like the old men fighting back against their society, or like angsty teenagers being angsty, if you reference my last video about the types of protagonists, then you will, which I'll link up here, I'm pretty sure it'll be up there this time, I'm not going to clown myself, then you'll be able to see how this one differentiates from the others and how to someone like me it might be more interesting to read. So yes, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure to like the video, it helps a lot. And if you really liked it or you want to continue seeing my content, please subscribe. So thank you again. Bye.